Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtedar, your host, and today I'm going to talk to you about the German elections. It's about Friday night when I'm recording this Conversations, and the elections are on Sunday, February 23rd. This is a critical election for Germany because Germany is at the crossroads. Its economy has been shrinking for 2 consecutive years. So if anything at all, it has an economic crisis on its hands, and the political parties are struggling to cope with the political consequences of a failing economy and the challenge, if you win the election, to how to revive this failing economy. Besides that, the Germans are also facing a domestic political crisis with the rise of the extreme right, AfD. There's a pretty good chance that they're going to perform in such a way that it's going to send shivers down the spine of all centrist and leftist parties. There is a fear that there is a resurgence of extreme right-wing ideas, neo-Nazis in Germany, and the enormously popular rise of Alternative for Germany, the AfD party, is totally frightening. And so everybody is going into this election with the fear that AfD might do very well. It'll be an international embarrassment and definitely a political challenge for whoever wins the elections. And then, of course, they're facing an international political challenge with regards to Donald Trump's foreign policy and what the Germans see as Trump's abandonment of Ukraine and realignment with Russia. And that presents a bouquet of challenges to German foreign policy and German state capacity. And we will talk about all of these challenges. And so I think that this election is very, very critical, and it will determine whether Germany remains as one of the preeminent nations in the world, or it begins to decline rapidly and becomes marginalized, not just in global politics and global economy, but also in Europe. But before I get into the details, please subscribe to Khanversations, like this video, press the bell icon, and do not forget to share this video with your social political network. The perspectives that I bring are not very common. You will have to watch a wide range of shows in order to be able to get the insights that I provide to you. So therefore, it's important that you not only subscribe, but also share this video with the rest of your social political network. So if you're looking at this particular graphic, this is the spectrum, the ideological spectrum of the political parties which are there. In Germany, there are at least 8 political parties which are expected to win seats. From the far left, you can see the left is the far left party, and AfD is the extreme right party. And then you have the main parties essentially are CSU, CDU, which have formed an alliance. So Christian Democratic Union is the famous right-wing party. This is the equivalent of the GOP of Germany. And then they have a regional party from Bavaria, Christian Social Union, which is their ally. So CSU, CDU is the center-right party. And SPD, the Social Democratic Party, which is like the Democrats of Germany, which is the center-left party, and it tends to align usually with the Greens and sometimes also with FDP, the Free Democratic Party. CSU, CDU will also align with Free Democratic Party if they need a coalition partner. So basically, you can say that Greens and FDP are more or less in the center, even though Greens are very pro-environment. And of the left of center, you have the Social Democratic Party and the other two. And of the right of center, you have CSU and CDU, which are conservative as well as, shall we say, a bit more pro-business, pro-capitalism. And then, of course, you have the far-right party, which is far-right not just because of its economic policies, but also policies which kind of border on racism and also against the LGBTQ trend in societies. So this is the broad spectrum. So basically, in terms of their political positions, Social Democratic Party tends to work, at least it claims, like the Democratic Party, to represent the working class, to tax the rich, and to create a welfare state that helps the working class people and those who are being left behind. So it is a left of center party that believes in democracy, that believes in human rights, and that also believes in distribution of wealth through progressive taxation. And then the Christian Democratic Union and its allies are right of center. They are more pro-business. They believe in cutting taxes for the rich and for the business. And they hope that if rich people become richer and if the corporate sector makes profits, then there will be a trickle-down effect. And so the rest of the country will become better. When it comes to foreign policy, most of these big parties more or less have the same position. They are pro-United States, pro-European Union, pro-NATO, anti-Russia, and more or less anti-China, but also recognize that they are already dependent on China. So they are geopolitically opposed to China, but geoeconomically still more or less connected and integrated with China, even though increasingly the Germans as well as Europeans are talking about delinking and de-risking their economies with regards to Chinese economy. AFD, on the other hand, is an extremist party. It is anti-immigration. It is anti-non-white people. It is anti-LGBTQ. So it is basically a rather extreme version of MAGA, or more or less like MAGA in the United States. But they are also quite sympathetic to the Russian position. They are more or less against Germany being so strongly aligned with Ukraine. So if AFD has any say after Sunday, then it is quite possible that Germany will be more or less aligned with the US with regards to the Russia-Ukraine foreign policy. But AFD is not expected to win. So CDU is probably expected to win. And so Friedrich Merz is probably going to be the new chancellor. And you can see the latest poll. And in that case, there will be very little change in German foreign policy. Schulz came out very strongly critical of the United States and very pro-Ukraine in the past few days, but he was posturing, and I think he thinks that the Germans more or less are going to vote for him because he's sounding tough with regards to Putin. So if you look at this YouGov poll, this is the final poll that has been taken before elections. There are going to be no more polls. And according to this poll, there are 630 seats in the German parliament. So if you look at the vote share and the vote seats that is anticipated, the polling shows that CDU, CSU combined will get about 29.9%, and that will give them 220 seats. They need 316 seats to have a majority in the parliament. AFD will get about 19.7%. For the last few months, they were being pegged at 21%, but the latest poll shows 19.7%. That is very interesting. That will get them 140 seats, and they will be in the second position. They won't be able to form a government. They are practically 170, 180 seats short for that. But it'll be their best showing, and it will be devastating to the political image in Germany if they do get somewhere close to 25% of the vote, because there are reports in the media that there is a surge in support for AFD, even though there is no poll that is backing it at the moment. But they are saying that in the final hours, there is more and more support apparently for AFD. There's also a lot of support coming from J.D. Vance and Elon Musk. So the American government is, at least the Republican Party that is aligned with Donald Trump, is also backing AFD to do well. The party of Olaf Scholz, the Social Democratic Party, is expected to get about 115 seats, which is 16%. The Greens, basically the left of center, is going to do well. If you look at it here, 27, 28, 35, so about 40% of the vote and about 250 seats will go to the parties on the left, and the parties on the right are expected to get 55% of the seats. So it's going to be 45-55 split from left to right. And so needless to say that there will be a right of center government in Germany from Monday. So there will be an ideological shift, but I don't know whether there will be a change in foreign policy. Now, coming to the circumstances or the context of German elections, there are two things that I want to talk about. One, Germany is seen as a leader of the European Union, even though the French keep trying to usurp leadership, but they often go in opposite directions. So, for example, France is part of NATO and the European Union, but French nuclear weapons are not available for Article 5. So without the US, the French European Union or for the NATO basically has to rely on the British nukes to balance Russia, China, and whoever they designate as their enemy. So the French, while they are part of NATO as well as EU, are not fully committed to Europe as much as Germany is committed. But Germany has also done a lot to help countries who have become part of the European Union, has basically underwritten the expansion of EU in many ways. So if the United States were to withdraw its troops, withdraw its support, impose tariffs, essentially behave more like an enemy rather than an ally with regards to Europe, then Germany will have to step up and try and fill the gap that the US is going to leave when it comes to leadership on the matters of security and relations with the rest of the world. So basically, the onus of leadership of the West without America will fall on Germany, and I don't think it's ready for that. I don't think it has the capacity to be that. It may be the third biggest economy in the world. It just overtook Japan, but it is roughly 1/8 of the United States. Germany is about $4.5 trillion. The US is $30 trillion. The US is nearly 7.5 times bigger than Germany. There is no context. In the past 2 years, the German economy has declined and shrunk rather than grow, while the US economy has grown. So in 2 consecutive years, 2023 and 2024, the German economy has shrunk in the sense that its GDP has declined. It was a bigger economy in 2022 than it is now. And if you look at this particular graph that I'm sharing, you can see that post-COVID, that is after 2020, the United States has shown very robust growth, above 2%, 2.5% in the past 3 years. Its turnaround after COVID was also over 6%, far better than Germany. But Germany did well in 21 and 22, but since then it has been showing negative growth. So economically, I mean, there's nothing robust about the German economy. So they don't have the money, they don't have the optimism, and there's a lot of lack of confidence because of the political crisis at home. The US is also experiencing a similar political crisis. You could argue that if you were to look at America through the German lens, then it is like saying that AFD has won the election and the leader of AFD is now the president of the United States. So there's a lot in common between MAGA and AFD, and that's why J.D. Vance and Elon Musk are so openly supporting AFD. There's another thing that I wanted to talk about, is that the German model of growth and development itself, I think, is taking a beating, and Germany is not able to adjust to the new model. So these are the 5 reasons why the German economy is not doing well. First, I will talk to you about the causes which are long-term and then the causes which are short-term. And so, for example, Germany has relied heavily on manufacturing in China. German economy is analog, not digital-driven. So basically, they are into heavy machinery, cars. They make wonderful and beautiful cars, BMWs, Mercedes, Porsche, Volkswagen. These are some of the most prominent brands coming out of Germany, and then they are into chemicals. So these are the 3 areas which are heavily industrial areas that have been the focus and the strength of German economy. But 2 things. One, that the fact that they were making this stuff increasingly in China and then selling it primarily in the West and in China and in the US, the economy did reasonably well. And so they suffered the least from what is called as China Shock 1.0. But now China Shock 2.0 is hurting Germany significantly because the Chinese are making things just as good as Germany and making them cheaper, for example, when it comes to cars. And so Germany is not able to compete with China in manufacturing, and with US becoming more and more protectionist, German economy, which relies a lot on exports, is declining. And that's why you see negative growth for the past 2 years. One example of this would be what's happening in the car arena. So the Germans are behind on this. They did not bet on the electric idea of an electric vehicle. And there's a very interesting argument saying that Germans have failed to innovate. They were merely adapting. And so what they did was they thought, oh, let's move our manufacturing to China and make these beautiful cars in China and sell them. So basically, they're still fossil fuel driven cars. And Tesla in the US, as well as BYD and other Chinese brands, came up with electric vehicles, which the Germans are unable to compete. And with more and more countries looking towards electric vehicles, and with the infrastructure necessary to facilitate the use of electric vehicles growing very rapidly, the Germans are falling behind. So they are losing the edge that made them the economy that they are, which is manufacturing. So they're losing the manufacturing edge to China, and they're losing the market on the basis of which they became a rich and influential economy, which is the United States. And if Trump goes ahead and imposes the 15% across the board or reciprocal tariffs that he's planning to, then all European economies, including Germany, are going to suffer. The US economy also may suffer, might suffer, but I think the relative impact on Germany will be far more than on the United States. And if Germany tries to get past and around the tariffs, as German car manufacturers are trying to do by manufacturing their cars in the US, then they will have a labor crisis, and they will lose jobs to Americans. The more recent consequences have been is the labor crisis. So even though Germany has allowed, especially Merkel, a lot of immigrants, especially from Syria and other Middle Eastern countries, as well as Afghanistan, there is a labor shortage in Germany, which is kind of counterintuitive. If the economy is not doing well, then there should be loss of jobs, but apparently there is loss of labor too. And that means that it's not doing a very good job of assimilating the labor, and the cost of handling the refugees, and the cost of or the inability to properly assimilate immigrants is, I think, another reason why the economy is not doing well. And now it has also engendered a lot of hatred and the rise of extreme right parties in both national politics and regional politics. And then finally, of course, the war in Ukraine, which has forced the Germans to reallocate resources to the defense of a foreign country, and therefore they have had to cut lots of their projects at home, which has really hurt social services and other things in Germany, including contributing to the decline of the German economy. And of course, they were so dependent because they were also very environmentally conscious and sustainable. They stopped producing energy using coal and also stopped producing energy using nuclear energy. So they shut down their nuclear plants, they shut down their coal plants, and completely dependent on fossil fuels and natural gas, all coming from Russia. And once the war started and sanctions were imposed and Russian gas and oil were cut off, Germany's cost of energy has gone significantly high. And that is a singular reason, perhaps, why in the last 2 years, German economy has declined. Germany is committing suicide, economic suicide, in order to save Ukraine. Great. I imagine if the war continues for 3 more years, if Donald Trump is not able to put an end to this war and is not able to bring Russia back into the fold, the German economy is going to suffer directly as a consequence if the war continues, because there'll be pressure now to give more to Ukraine because the US is not going to do that. And then they will still be deprived of oil and energy coming from Russia. They may buy from the United States, but both the LNG as well as oil are far more expensive from the United States. And the US crude apparently is not as good as that comes from the Middle East. So the cost of refining is also a bit higher than if you were, say, importing this from Saudi Arabia or elsewhere, or Russia. So I think the German economy is going to be no match for the United States. Germany is not going to be able to fill the gap. And so Europe looks to a very troubled future without the help of the US, and a weakening Germany, with an economy which is contracting, and a political environment which is extremely troubling, to say the least. And if AfD gets 25% vote on Sunday, then it's going to be very, very fascinating to see what impact it has on German economy and on German foreign policy. AfD is also anti-European Union, so there will be lots of resistance to align with all the policies that are coming from Brussels. And so we will see what happens to Germany's foreign policy towards the US, towards the European Union, towards China, towards Russia. And sometime after the elections are over and they are able to, we know what coalition eventually begins to govern in Germany. I will do another conversations to discuss what's happening in Germany. At the moment, I'm going to conclude by saying there's a pretty good chance that Friedrich Merz, the leader of CDU, will be the new chancellor of Germany. And it'll be interesting to see what happens to Olaf Scholz, whose party is expected to finish third. But of course, the main thing to watch out is how well Alice Weidel's party, AfD, does in the German elections, because Germany is the heart of the European Union, and if German goes extreme right, this is going to be really, really interesting with regards to the rapid decline of liberal internationalism and the liberal order. So anyway, I hope you found this as my assessment of Germany and criticality of German elections useful. Please subscribe to Khanversations, like this video, press the bell icon, and do not forget to share this with your socio-political network. Until next time, I'm your host. Take care.